Hello, everybody. Good evening. Basically, what exactly I am going to be doing in next few minutes. Basically, I'll give you how exactly it all started. What are some of the real use cases right now? What different technologies are in use? And of course, this is still new, so there are some limitations right now. So we'll have to see, what all are limiting right now, and what can we expect in future. So that's what let's try to cover. Let's not be over ambitious yet. And I think I would assume that there would be a different level of awareness with respect to technology in this group. If you already know something, that is wonderful. If you are new to this field, I would definitely, I'm convinced that you will get a good understanding of what is happening here. Okay, so let's start. As I said earlier, I have already covered this, so we will not be making you expert here today, especially in today's session. Today's objective is to give you a fair level of understanding, and and then we will take it, build upon this in the next few weeks. Got it? Okay. So now let's come to this thing, how exactly it started. So if I'm not sure, and Deepak, I think if there is something which is showstopper which somebody needs to, I think let's not keep the questions to the end. If somebody has a very interesting point or points to make, or interesting question to ask Deepak Singh, please interrupt me and uh, share with me the questions. Okay.
Sure, sir. So can we just got a question from Sujal asking, can this session start with the question why blockchain?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a good question basically. So what really, and that's what exactly I was going to be talking about. Now, Sujal, good question, good thought process. See what happened in 2008, and I think this is something which is true for not only for last time 2008, but this financial cycle or financial crisis that really happens all the time. Okay, so this 2008 also was such a crisis time where what really happened, the whole world was collapsing, the financial world primarily, and all the financial institutions were completely in a very broken stage. Why was that happening? It was basically related to mortgage banking crisis, which started from US. Okay. Of course, there is a lot of history in this. I think if you go and find out what was the global financial crisis GFC in 2008, you will get a lot of content on the internet. I would suggest that you should go and read about what really happened. But but in essence, what really happened was that interest rate became was lowered, and people. So what happened? More people started affording the houses, and a lot of people started taking loan, even if they were not sure about their repayment ability. And then what happened on top of that, all these loans, when, say for example, if you are taking a home loan and you are not sure about whether you can pay the EMI or not, and many of these people started defaulting means they were not able to pay their EMIs on time. Okay, but then what happened that some people, when they started taking these loans, then there were financial products. If some of you, if you understand finance industry, then there is a term called derivative products. Now these derivative products are the products where the underlying products are, so they are dependent on some underlying products. They could be futures, forwards, options. There are so many mortgage products where there also. So what really happened in a short, in short, what I will explain to you, that people were able to hide behind these derivative products, whether they are a good buyer or a bad buyer. Okay, and these products were packaged and sold to other people, and that way there were different layers of these products. And so what happened? So for example, if you are coming at layer 5 or layer 8, you don't know what kind of product is packaged inside, because those things were pretty opaque, or pretty not visible to the end person who is buying those products. Okay. So there are a lot of complexity here. So understand this in a simple term, that this world was completely, and then there were rating agencies who came. They were started doing the the malpractices. They started rating some of these financial derivative products in a with good rating, irrespective of their bad quality asset hidden inside. Many things happened, and that way what happened. And 2008, what happened? The world was very connected. So if US is failing, then all the people who were invested in these assets in US, they all started failing. So that's where it was called a global financial crisis. So all these things were happening. In fact, I was there in US that time when all these things were happening, and I've seen the impact. I have seen the banks fail. I've seen big shops failing just like that. And it was pretty obvious, because the whole financial system was depending on trust. And the trust that, you are trusting these financial institutions, you are trusting these bodies, and those people whom you are trusting, they were making use of this trust, and they were breaking their promises. Now, what happened? So when all these problems were there, that time somebody called Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't know whether this is a person or a group, or who is this person. We don't know. But this person comes back and he says that, look, we don't need to trust any third party or intermediary. And this is a snapshot of the paper which Satoshi had written. And what he said that, look, you don't need to have a third party or intermediary to do any transaction. This Bitcoin will allow you. So Bitcoin basically is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, as you see here, which does not need any third party or intermediary. You do not need to trust anybody. Rather, the trust is generated by the technology. Now, it really used several things. We will not discuss the Bitcoin paper here, because you can go and read that. But what it showed, that several technologies were there, cryptography was there, and decentralized consensus came into picture, right? How do you agree on some decision in a decentralized world? All those things came together. And finally, while Bitcoin was a great innovation, in my opinion, which is still the most one of the most I would say sought after cryptocurrency. But more than the cryptocurrency, what Bitcoin laid the foundation, it laid the foundation of a fantastic technology which got improved further. And that's where you have all these things which started. Deepak, anything, any interesting question from anybody so far?
So we have one question from Nirmal Mishra, which I think is a very genuine question when he says that, sir, I am very confused whether I should focus on coding and learn a particular language, or should I prepare for competitive coding like hackathons, or should I learn DSA, or should I go for cloud and blockchain? I'm totally confused. Please address.
So I think the point is that you need to first of all find out what exactly do you like, what is your what excites you, and whether you are going to be part of whether you are going to be part of any hackathon. You need some skills. So skill building should be a priority. Now the only thing, you have to decide which area you need to build the skill. Okay, so coming back to the point here, though, so this 2008 time, it really gave you a context of what exactly, why was the world so disparate that time. And this Bitcoin paper which came, and Bitcoin got released, and it showed a promise that, look, you don't really necessarily need to depend on these third parties. That's a big promise, in my opinion. Very big promise, right? So essentially, if you look at Bitcoin from there, what happens in the central systems? In the centralized systems, what really happens, that you have got one central entity, and that could be any entity for that matter, who has got the control of the database, who maintains the transaction, all transactions in the database. For example, if you are working with a bank maintains the ledger, right, for you. and says that Mr. X or Miss X, you have got, say for example, 50,000 rupees in your bank, right? Now, what happens that Mr. X gives 10,000 rupees to Miss Y, okay? And what the bank does, basically, bank just changes or transfers the amount from X to Y. Now, whether they are the same bank or different bank, I will not go into all of that. There are different ways these things happen. You understand that? How does UPI work? How does different interbank transfers happen? All those things. Okay. But the point what I'm trying to get at here is that it is maintained, this ledger is maintained by the bank, and bank has got the whole control. If bank wants, then bank can do fraud here. And there are many instances in the past where the bank has defrauded its customers. And these things are not uncommon because you are trusting. Now, it is true that banks are bound by government rules and all those things are there, but banks fail. Now, am I saying that blockchain does not have any issue? No, of course, blockchain also is maturing. It is our responsibility to make sure that blockchain solves the problem which are there in the centralized world. We have to step into, because technology has its capability. Any technology, and you may have seen the FTX kind of things failing, sorry. So you would see that there are failures in blockchain also. Are there technological failure? Most of the time, no. Because technology is maturing, there may be some bug in the program, but most of the time what I see that there are greed is coming there as well. So we have to make sure that the system we can trust, and we are moving in that direction. But anyway, coming back to the point. So the blockchain as a technology evolved from Bitcoin. Okay, and the the slide that you are seeing in front of you yourself right now basically talks about that. So what happens? A blockchain is a chain of blocks. All these blocks are connected to the previous blocks. The first block being called a Genesis block, and the rest of the blocks are connected to the previous blocks in some cryptographic manner. And all these blocks have their transactions. And all these transactions within a block, they are generated by users, and they are, and what happens that as a community, as a group, the decentralized agreement happens on these transactions and the blocks. And then once everybody, a majority of the group agrees that these are the valid set of transactions, then you move on to the next block. Essentially, blockchain is that, nothing else. Let me repeat it. So blockchain as a system is basically, if you understand programming, it is kind of linked list where you connect each block with the previous block, and it keeps going until it reaches the first block of the blockchain. That is called the Genesis block. The transactions in each block, they are created by users, business users of that particular blockchain. And these transactions and these blocks are agreed upon in a consensus, decentralized consensus way. And then this blocks after blocks formation continues. That's what exactly is blockchain. Now, I have described this blockchain in the most simple method. And what are the examples of these blockchains? These blockchains could be Ethereum, could be Bitcoin, could be Solana, could be Avalanche, right? There are several. Now, there are different concepts that we will talk about maybe progressively. I will be spending some time with all of you, even while your, the other sessions are happening. I'll be spending some time with you, bringing some important concepts from the blockchain, and I'll be discussing with all of you. So there are different layers of blockchain, right? There are different types of blockchain, whether you are a permission blockchain or you are a permissionless blockchain, for example. Right? There are several things there, but without getting too deep into those things right now, let us just say that who maintains the ledger here? As a group, Nobody maintains the ledger. As a group, we all come to an agreement, right? And that becomes the transaction, that becomes the ledger history. How are we checking whether the transactions, what I am putting into a block, they are valid? And you can always say that there are a set of defined rules, which define whether these transactions are valid or not. So for example, if your Bitcoin address has got 2 Bitcoin, for example, and you are trying to give 5 Bitcoin to somebody, it is not allowed, right? So there are simple rules, right? Who creates the new Bitcoin? There is, now what really happens that in the centralized world, who creates the money? Government creates the money, right? On what basis government creates the money? No basis. Government does not need any permission, because these are all monetary tools in the hands of the government. They control the economy by pushing money to the market, taking money back from the market. All those things governments do. But in an ideal situation, these things work. But if the economy is not in a good shape of a country, for example, production GDP is falling, production capacity of the country is falling, there is not much industry growth is not there, agriculture is not effective, what happens? There is no income. What does government do? They will try to create more money to survive it, sustain it. But what happens in turn? More money gets pushed into the market, inflation starts increasing, devaluation of money starts happening, and the country goes into a hyperinflation mode. You would have heard of the story that people going to the grocery store, keeping money in big bags, and then getting one loaf of bread, one dozen egg. That's the situation. So what happens in the Bitcoin case? Nobody creates money. Now, Bitcoin has been decided to be, max at most 21 million Bitcoins will ever be created. And every time a new block is created, the person who creates the block, that person gets rewarded with some block, some Bitcoin. Okay. Now, how exactly rules can change? Now, these all are majority decision. When people come together, they might go and change the, they might go and change the rules also. But then all these are decisions by, the majority. How does Bitcoin acquire exchange value? I think this is a very deep subject. Maybe I'll just touch upon it. That anything, for example, why does something have value? Something has value because it is, why does gold have value, for example? Why do you think gold is valuable? Because gold has got some utility. Gold is scarce. You cannot go and mine indefinite amount of gold from the mines. Very scarce, limited supply, right? And there is a demand by people. So there are several things. And again, I will not go into currency here. If I will request my team. We are creating one LMS platform. In that LMS platform, you will find some of these talks which I have given in some of the Alt Hacks, where we have talked, few topics in much more depth. So, I will request my team to share the LMS when that becomes ready, so that you can go and watch some of these videos there. Okay, so coming back to the next point, how does a blockchain work in terms of transactions, right? So what really happens that, okay, let's imagine, okay, let me explain this flow with an example. Okay, so example is like this. You are a blockchain. You could be Bitcoin, you could be Ethereum, you could be any blockchain for that matter, or Polkadot, or any blockchain. So what really happens that Bitcoin is pretty much simple, because why? On Bitcoin blockchain, what happens that everybody can do primarily they can do one task, and that is sending money from one person to another person, right? So those are transactions. But on other blockchains, so let me go step back a little bit and let me explain something. So when Bitcoin started in 2008, and then transactions started picking up maybe a year or so later. But then what happens in 2014 or so, somebody called Vitalik Buterin. Now, Vitalik Buterin, he pretty smart young chap, and he thought that Bitcoin has got very limited application. So he created something upon which you can do transactions which are more generic in nature. So what did Bitcoin give you? Bitcoin gave you an ability to transfer money from A to B. That's it. Mostly. You can add some scripting there, but pretty limited use case. But Ethereum, when Ethereum started, so Ethereum, it is called Ethereum Virtual Machine, and I'll talk about it later. But then what EVM did, that it gave you an ability to create different types of transactions, different types of business transactions. Now, these business transactions are initiated by users in applications or dApps, what you call decentralized applications, which are built on top of EVM machine. Let me repeat this. These are the applications which are built on top of EVM machine, and the users which are interacting with these applications, they trigger these transactions, and ultimately all of these transactions are, in a way, transactions which get recorded in the blockchain, in the blocks in the blockchain. Which blockchain? Ethereum blockchain. So what Ethereum gave you? Ethereum gave you a scale. Ethereum gave you a width in which what you can do, you can go and you can create different types of transactions, different types of business applications could be created on top of Ethereum, such as they could be finance applications, they could be supply chain applications, they could be gaming applications, they could be sports applications, they could be music applications, they could be NFTs, they could be anything. And then Ethereum, of course, there are so many histories, and maybe once you spend time with us in next 2 months, you will understand many, many more things that we will be going deeper into. But for today's session, I want to tell you that these transactions which are coming from the users via applications which are built on top of Ethereum virtual machine. Now, these transactions, whether it is Bitcoin transaction in Bitcoin network, or it is, any business application, on Ethereum network, for example, these transactions are published on the network. What do I mean when I say network? When I say network, what really I mean, that that all the people who really are part of that network, they will have their own identification in terms of address. Okay. And if depending upon what role they are playing, if they are playing the role of validation of the transactions and the blocks, they would be called validator. If they are just doing, a transaction user, they could be, and in nodes also, you could be different types of node. You could be a light node, which does not maintain so much of history. You could be archival node, where you maintain so much of history. There is different types, but again, not going into all of that. I will talk about consensus a little later, but right now let us say, how does a transaction flow in any blockchain? So what happens first? These transactions are published on the network. That look, for example, I am on Bitcoin network. Let's take that example, and I am sending 0.005 Bitcoin to Deepak Singh, for example. Deepak Singh also has an address on the Bitcoin. I have got an address. So I'll say that Praveen sends 0.005 Bitcoin to Deepak Singh. Now this transaction is publicized or published to the whole network. That this is one transaction example. Okay, how do the different nodes they get these transactions? So they do this by basically something called gossip protocol. So what happens, that say for example, I am connected to 5 nodes. I will send this transaction to all these 5. Now these guys are connected to somebody else, so they will send to them. And in some time, everybody gets up to the sync. Now, everybody, all nodes, they maintain their transaction data onto something which is called mempool. Now these mempools are the place where, and every node has got their own mempool. Okay. So the transaction gets landed there. And after that, what really happens, the miners will go and pick up these transactions. And what really happens that once they pick up these transactions, then they will go and do the validation process. They will verify whether transactions, are valid or not. And then all miners, in the case of Bitcoin, they will get into a race of creating the next block. Okay. And then when these guys, whoever is now, how exactly a next block gets created? So next block will get created by solving a puzzle. What is this puzzle mean? So this puzzle is basically something where you have to find, in case of Bitcoin, and if it is proof of work, consensus mechanism, where what we do, that you go and solve a puzzle, you try to find that nonce which gives you an outcome which is having the first, say for example, 10 bytes as zeros. Okay. Now that could be a different, there could be a different mechanism for different blockchains. But at the end of the day, what really happens that you try to solve a puzzle, and if you are having the enough capacity to solve, find this solution, then you go and publicize this outcome to the whole world. The beauty is that others will validate, and if all of them find this okay, then what happens, that block gets accepted as the next block, and then people will take that block as the next block, and then they will start building on the next block by picking up the next set of transactions. Now this is the continuous process. Okay. So if you really see here that what are the different things that we're talking about which are important for you to understand. Okay. So you understand the point trust here. Why is trust so important? Trust is so important because you do not need to have anybody, you do not need to trust anybody for that matter. What are you trusting here in this blockchain system? You are trusting the code. Now, if you are not doing a good job in coding, I was reading some article yesterday or day before, this curve protocol. Have you heard of the curve? Curve protocol was hacked for around 450 plus million US dollars. And the reason was that it was not really that curve got hacked, but it was basically the Viper programming language, which was used in the curve protocol, that had some issue there. Now, the point what I'm trying to say that you are trusting the code, but if the code is not properly written, then you have got a problem, right? So you need to make sure that you have the right code written. You need to make sure that the code gets audited properly. All the vulnerability possibilities are exploited or checked properly so that they are not exploited later, right? All these things are very, very important for you to consider. Okay, so we talked about network type, right? So the different.
Hey, Praveen sir, sorry to interrupt you. I think Abhishek sir has joined us. Abhishek sir, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here, Deepak. Hi, Praveen. Hello,
Hey.
everyone.
Hey,
Hi, sir. Thanks
Can
for
you guys hear
joining
me?
in. Yeah, we can hear you, sir. Yeah.
Perfect. So,
Yes, so we were
Deepak, I don't
basically
want to interrupt if the session is still going. I do want to speak a few words to everyone here. But Praveen, you want to finish, or like Deepak, what's the agenda you want to follow?
I'll take 15-20 minutes. Let me finish it, then I'll give it to you.
Perfect. Yeah, take your time. I'm here.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah. So guys, so what we're talking about different types of blockchain, because there are different types of business requirements, right? In some type of business requirements, what really happens is that you do not want to expose your details to outside, right? In some types of blockchain business requirements, you are okay doing that, right? So different types of blockchain networks have come. There are permissionless blockchains where anybody can join. Permissioned blockchain, you need to have permission. Consortium blockchain, people coming together, right? Many people coming together, they looking at all transactions, validating them, approving them as a group with majority. So there's several types. But we have to understand one point, which is common in all these cases, that the consensus is not, finalization is not done by one entity. That is the core philosophy across these blockchains, right? And that is the innovation that we are talking about. And that innovation has shown huge amount of prospects and possibilities when it comes to the impact that it can create on the world, right? Okay, so guys, today is the first session, so I think you may not understand everything, but hang in. I think you will be in few days and few weeks, you will be pro in this. Anyway, so coming back to the point, nodes. We talked about nodes. These are the guys in any blockchain. These are the guys who run a very specific software onto their machines, right? And those machines, basically, they do some kind of validation process of the transactions. They help in creating the next blocks, and then they get rewarded by the concerned blockchain in different ways, depending upon the blockchain you are talking about. But fundamentally, this is the same concept in all blockchains. So whatever I'm telling you, some concepts may apply to all blockchains, some concepts may apply to some blockchain. I will be talking about that. Let's go to the next point, consensus mechanism. Now, without getting into too much technicality here, let me tell you what is consensus mechanism. If you compare it with the centralized world, where a person or an entity is responsible for taking decision, that entity does not need anybody else to come and help that decision making process. But the moment you talk about decentralized world, where no owner is the main owner, no node is the main node, all nodes have the same rights, then it becomes a difficult task. And the first breakthrough was done by Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, where Bitcoin introduced something called proof of work. And that's what I was talking about earlier, that any block that is created has got some work associated in coming up with a nonce, which gives a hash output, which has got a minimum number of 0. So there is an economic value which is linked to that block creation. And what is that economic value? You have spent so much of hash power, you have spent so much of energy in coming up with that block. And if somebody wants to go and defraud the whole system, they will have to do so much of work to repeat that process. Not possible physically. But what happens that in this process that you spend a lot of energy, which is not good for the planet. And that's where a lot of discussions were happening. And then the proof of stake model came. This is also very similar model in the sense that this also has got an incentive attached to it, which prohibits people from doing wrong things. But this economic incentive, or this economic stake, what people do, they put some money into the protocol or blockchain and tell them that, look, I am putting some money with you. If I behave wrongly, please take my money as penalty. So what happens in that case? People don't misbehave. If they misbehave, their money gets penalized. Their money, what they have put with the bank or protocol, that gets cut. Okay. And if they behave properly, they can get rewarded. So there are different variants of proof of stake. I'll not go into all of that, but essentially proof of work is you do some hard work, consume energy, and come up with the next block. And in case of proof of stake, what you do basically is that you put some money with the protocol, with the blockchain, and the blockchain will reward you if you behave properly. Blockchain will penalize you if you don't behave properly. And that's how these people are responsible for creating the next block. That's in the at the highest level of. I would still recommend that you guys go and do some deep study onto these topics to understand more, but you understand the base concept here, correct? We talked about hashing. Okay, I'll talk hashing a little later, signature a little later. You understand transaction confirmation, right? Transaction confirmation is a mechanism in which when somebody gives a transaction onto the network by publishing it to the network. And when this transaction gets accepted in a block, then the network or blockchain gives the transaction confirmation back to the user. That's what exactly. When does a transaction get included in the block? Depends. Are you, incentivizing the block creator by giving some extra money other than the money that the block creator gets from the blockchain? Okay. So these things are basically little, subjective in my opinion, but at the same time, you get these transaction confirmations when, the transaction gets included in a particular block. Now, there are certain things which are very specific to Bitcoin here, and you should understand these things. And these things are very, very related topic. You understand mining, right? Mining is creating the next block. So I'll leave that mining here. If you look at double spending, if you look at UTXO, if you look at signature, if you look at hashing, right? All these things are very related. What does it mean? If you have got some money in a digital form before Bitcoin was invented, so what anybody can copy, make a copy of a currency and give it to anybody, right? If you go and spend if you go and take your rupees note or dollar note, you copy it and go and try to give it to a shopkeeper, he will not accept it. Why? Because it doesn't have any value. But in case of internet, this is the problem. Problem is that there is no original, no duplicate, right? So how to solve this problem? If you have got $100, then you should be able to spend only up to $100. If you are being able to spend more than $100, then it's a big problem, right? So this problem is called double spending in the digital world. And this problem was solved by Bitcoin in a very, very interesting way. They came up with a concept of something called UTXO, unspent transaction output. What really happens is that every account, we maintain a balance. How much money do you have? Okay. And if somebody is trying to send the money, some transaction to somebody else, we'll go and check whether you have that much money. And once that transaction is effected, then the sender's transaction balance gets reduced by that amount, and the receiver's balance gets increased by that amount. And that particular process gets approved by all the majority of the nodes. Now, once that happens, that gives you a new state of the blockchain. So these transactions, okay, please pay attention on this point. All these transactions, they kind of go and affect the state of the blockchain. Blockchain from state 1, 20 transactions, state 2. Now this state transition process, by having some transactions, this becomes permanent in the history of blockchain. Nobody can go and come and change. Now, some changes can happen when you are exactly at the same point of block creation, but the moment you keep moving far from that point in time, then what happens that it becomes very difficult to go and undo these things. Not possible. And that is where the beauty is that so far Bitcoin has not been hacked in the last 15 years. Not a joke. Signature, we talked about. Any transaction that you are sending, I may say that, okay, I am Deepak Singh and I am sending his 5 Bitcoins to somebody else. How do I confirm that? So whenever I am sending a transaction, I will need to sign that transaction with my private key, and then only that transaction will be taken by the blockchain. Very, very important thing. Okay, so now let's come to the next slide. Now, I talked about hashing and signature. Now, hashing and signature, they play a very, very important role in blockchain. What really happens is that hashing is you take any input, you hash it by some algorithm, right? It could be SHA-256 or it could be anything. And once you hash it, then the outcome that you get basically is something which is always a fixed, length outcome. And if you change anything in the input, the output will be very different. You cannot compare it. You change just little in the input, and you got so different output. That's how the beauty here. Typically, there are some important attributes here. One is basically that you cannot find two different inputs where the inputs are not same, but their outputs are same. It is very, very impossible. I will not say impossible, very, very difficult to get such two inputs. Another beautiful thing here, that if you know the hashed outcome, you can never find the input. If this is not the case, then it's a big problem. Now, there are some questions which are coming right now. What happens when the quantum computing comes? Quantum computing, that's why there is a term right now which you must have heard of, that is your technology quantum safe? Can quantum computing break this? All these things are there. I think I'm not getting all of that, but I'm just trying to give you the very basic fundamental of hashing here. Then we call signature. Now, signature is another very important thing. What you really do, that you have a pair of secret key, that is private key and public key. You sign the message using your private key, and when it goes to somebody, when you are giving it to someone, then they can validate your message digest, okay, using your public key, because your public key is known to everybody. Okay, now this is something which is very interesting thing, because and it has got so much application in blockchain, and these are very, very basic primitives of cryptography. Okay, like I was saying, that maybe in next 2 months I will try to cover some interesting and important concepts as we go on along the course, so that you get a holistic understanding of blockchain world. Okay, now I just give the example of how different blocks are created here. Block 5, block 6, these are blocks. These are 3 blocks which we have chosen. Block 6 has got the hash of block 5. Block 7 has got hash of block 6. And if this continues, right? If you change any block for that matter, all the subsequent blocks get disturbed. Sorry, get disturbed. You cannot go and do that. That is what is the safety which blockchain provides. I'll come to my last bit of discussion. Some of the very important applications we talked about. I talked about finance, which is called decentralized finance, DeFi. It has got so much in last 5 to 7 years. I can't tell you. You should go and research on these. Transportation, very important. Logistics, supply chain, agriculture, real estate, insurance, identity. There are several others which I have not mentioned here. Games, sports. You can't imagine. Metaverses, NFTs, of course, those are coming in all of these business areas. But the point what I'm trying to make here is that the blockchain has found its utility in all of these areas. Blockchain has got fantastic progress in last 8 years or 10 years, I would say. And the people have been working very hard to make it, more and more innovative, more and more advanced. And that is where I think we need all of you smart people to come into this space and, contribute holistically to this process. What signifies blockchain? Technical maturity is happening right now. Innovation is very, very rapid. People have started trusting in this technology, though there are some issues here and there. And at the end of the day, this is creating a lot of value for the society and for the businesses. What really is required, we need have more clarity in regulations. I think it is happening, but I think we need to cover a lot of ground. Significant tokenization. I think let's keep this topic for some other day, where we will talk about tokenization and why do we think that tokenization is going to be important when this blockchain technology has to connect with the real world. There only tokenization comes very, very handy. Okay. Finally, I think before I give it back to Deepak Singh, this is the QR code for IBC Media and WhatsApp group. Please be a part of this group. The team will be talking about all important updates and beautiful things in this WhatsApp group for you to keep yourself updated. So that's pretty much, guys. I hope you've got a sense of what blockchain is, and at a initial level, we will be getting into much more technicalities from the next session onwards, and getting deep into coding, in module 2 and module 3. And then we will see you building your own application when we cross module 3 there. So that's pretty much, Deepak. Thank you so much for listening to me. And over to you back, Deepak Singh.
Thank you so much, sir. Before you say thank you multiple times, I would just request you to kindly just go through the questions in the Q&A section once, because we see a lot of similarity in the questions that are coming in. So I think we can summarize it in some way. So if you could just spend a minute, and then by the time we do that, I think if Abhishek sir is still here, would expect to hear from him. I'm sure student would be eager to hear from him. So guys, basically Abhishek Pitti is the CEO of IBC Media. You all know him. To all of the people who may not be aware of him, IBC Media and this curriculum of keeping this education of blockchain free for people, not just in India, but across the world, is the brainchild of this person. I'm really excited to have him here. He couldn't join us earlier. He was about to start the session, but unfortunately, because of traveling, and I think he's right now currently in Dubai. Abhishek sir, if you can hear us, once again, thank you for taking out the time to join us. Over to you, sir. Would love to hear your insights as to, so we are trying to just give an orientation of what IBC CEP is going to do for the students. And it would be great if you could just give your perspective also about the same to the students.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see me, but I'm sort of like I can tell on my phone. Oh, perfect. So everyone, again, thank you so much for joining. I'm sorry I couldn't join earlier. I'm in Dubai. I just landed this afternoon, and again, it's so awesome to join you guys online. And again, very happy to be here, be online with you. Congratulations, you made it this far. For people who don't know me or we haven't met before, it's a pleasure to meet you all. And I'll just tell you one purpose of being here with you, and you being on this call is, this is all about you and your careers, and this is all about telling you what you can do to get that highest paying job, or telling you how you can build your startup to make it $1 billion success. Tools you need, education you need to basically get there. And quite frankly, every time I attend Praveen's sessions, I always learn something. So he's the best, I believe, there is to learn from, because he will explain you very intuitively. So take this opportunity to ask questions. The fundamental thing I would like to tell you, you might be hearing a lot about generative AI, you might be hearing a lot about autonomous cars, you might be listening a lot about, any sector that is coming up. Blockchain is going to be part of it. Why? Because it's a horizontal technology. So that's point number one. So no matter where you go, which business you join, this is going to be a meaningful part of it in the future. Why? For data, security, capital. Like, you touch any aspect of the business, this will be part of that system. Point number one. Point number two, the main objective to have you on this call is to give you an internship of building a race car. And tomorrow, either you get a job in a race car company like Polkadot, or you go to a Toyota or a Camry or a BMW, you will still be the most qualified candidate for those jobs. That's the easiest way to explain what you're doing. When I say that, you have to also understand that this is not going to be easy. And if you're attending and hearing these things for the first time, totally okay. You should know that this is not going to be the most intuitive subject to understand, but it's more important for you to pay attention to the language and the applications of it, And by the time you're done with CEP, I can guarantee you, you will be probably the most, spoken person about Web3. You will be the most intuitive. You will have the most intuitive understanding. Why? Here's why. Because you have 300 people who are in your shoes, little ahead or little behind, but are learning together of this new technology. And we know that you're starting from zero. So we'll make sure that you have enough help to explain you, to clarify the questions. And we have a community with the same mindset of learning new technology. So I will tell you one thing. Being in the emerging technology space is like you are dating the hottest guy in your college or hottest girl in your school. Why? Because, it has the most demand for the jobs. It has the highest salaries for the jobs. It has the most convenience for the job. So just make sure that if you are here already, I can tell you that you are probably ahead of a lot of people in not just your college, but colleges across the state you come from. So please don't take this opportunity lightly. Pay attention to emerging technology. These industries are going to be the highest paying jobs for tomorrow and for the next decade to come. So I was seeing some questions about whether this is legal or regulatory challenges. Look, blockchain is perfectly legal. There is no regulatory challenge there. Crypto, on the other hand, is an application on blockchain. It is not blockchain. Crypto is an application. It's like a currency for blockchain system. That is an application. Now, there is tokens, which are different types of tokens that people issue for different use cases. And that is something, if you don't understand, you will think crypto is blockchain. It's illegal because somebody in a media who is a journalist who has no understanding of technology spoke that crypto is banned in India or it's has regulatory challenges. So don't go by that understanding, because that's a journalist speaking from what he knows. So it's like, what can you learn from journalists about technology, right? So my point is, please make sure you are paying attention to this. This is the upcoming emerging technology. If anything, I'll say you're 2 to 3 years late to this tech, but it's still in a very nascency stage of its life cycle. You're in great shape. Our partners like Polkadot is founded by the co-founder of Ethereum, which is like the #1 company in the world. And you would I honestly tell you, I wish I was in your shoes, to be very honest. I wish I was in your shoes. Having said that, I'm going to give you a cool opportunity. How many people want to earn IBC swag t-shirts or Alt Hack? This is all part of the Alt Hack. How many people want to, just clap your hands if you want to, like, show me hands, hearts, symbols, anything. Okay, if you're up for it, that's perfect. Here's what I'll tell you. Praveen is doing a great job in explaining these concepts, right? Here's what I would like you to do. I want you to explain, and we will do this challenge every day, every time this happens, and we will choose winners, okay? And here's what I'll tell you. I want you to explain in the simplest form for this particular session, what is decentralization, right? Simple, as if you're explaining it to a 5-year-old. What is decentralization? The best answers, we will choose the top 3 winners to give them, IBC Alt Hack t-shirts, as a gift. But the purpose of that is I want you, because it's a core concept, core philosophy around Web3. That's why Web3 exists in the first place. That's why blockchain exists in the first place. So do that. And the way you want to do that is you want to come up with that answer, go on Twitter, tag IBC, tag Polkadot, tag Alt Hack, tag these 3 tags, and put your answer saying, what do you think is decentralization, as if you are explaining to a 5-year-old, right? So that's the challenge for the day I wanted to give you. But again, this is just getting started. If you didn't understand anything, just know that this is the future of every single company that is out there. If the company adopts this technology, they will survive. If they don't, then there will be a better competitor, whether it's Google, Apple, Facebook, take any company. They either have to adopt this technology or they will die, if they don't use it. So I honestly tell you, this is probably, a great start. Don't give up because you don't understand. If this was easy, everybody will do it and everybody would get $1 million job, right? The whole idea is to help you learn this tech, get you on a race car internship, give you grants, make you winners, and make sure that we report your progress to the employers at the end of it, so that you get qualified for their jobs ultimately. So with that, I wish you well. I'm here rooting for you. I want you to be successful. We will meet very, very soon, in one way or the other. I'm here always to support. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Praveen, anybody from IBC Media, and we will stay in touch.
Okay, so Praveen sir, I hope you have got the opportunity to take a look at the tremendous amount of questions that we have had, and if you can just summarize, because if we go one by one, it will take eternity to solve to address all of them.
Thanks, Deepak. No, I think I agree with you. I think very interesting questions, and I guess many of you, I find you anonymous attendees. I'm not sure why is that. It is always good to have announce yourself, but then yeah, some good thoughts there. So it is not really correct to say that blockchain has not been implemented even after 10 years in major industries or companies. If you go and look at it, blockchain has been tried in almost every industry you can think of. In finance, if you really see, there is a different way to do finance, and that's where you see DeFi coming into picture. If you go and do the same banking with blockchain, and especially in the permissionless world, that's not going to happen. But even if you look at blockchain in the permission world, a lot of people have come together. In fact, Hyperledger Fabric and Hyperledger based solutions have been used by several banks. If you know about Ripple, Ripple has done great work in terms of giving the solution to the inter country the payment transfers. I mean, they have definitely challenged the conventional way of managing funds. So I think it is not true that these things are not implemented. Now the point is that while I say that, it is also true that this technology itself has been evolving so much in last 10 years that there has been some issues being reported, some technical failures have happened. All those things are part of, in my opinion, the journey, right? Now the question is that why is blockchain and Bitcoin getting mixed? See, the point is that the whole blockchain paradigm started from Bitcoin. You have to understand that point. Now, Bitcoin had a very specific way of doing things, but Bitcoin is the first blockchain implementation. You cannot remove Bitcoin when you talk about blockchain. Now, it is true that when Bitcoin came and when Bitcoin got implemented, there were several issues in that. And from there, you got to Ethereum. Ethereum itself had several issues in terms of scaling, in terms of other things. So you see, so many other blockchains, they came together to solve the problems of Ethereum. They could be layer 1s, they could be layer 2s, right? There could be layer 3s even. In fact, there are several issues which really, which are being progressively solved by, different innovators along the line. Okay, so I think it is definitely you need to start the history with Bitcoin, and then of course you start looking at it, discussing about it, further down the line. Okay, now The point is that even if in a highly regularized DB, changes are not possible. No, it's not correct to say, anonymous attendee. The point is that when you give access to somebody, that's where these issues come. If this was not an issue, then of course, then of course all these financial crises would not have happened. They do happen, and they do happen quite rampantly. Now, has blockchain been able to provide all the solutions yet? No, but definitely it has given a lot of them. But it really also has got some other issues which we have to solve as a community. I personally believe that these issues are getting solved, and that's where I think all of you have to come forward together and work towards making that happen, right? The investors in blockchain, I think there are several investors who believe in blockchain, and all of these people basically, they have the trust and the confidence in the technology, and especially the direction in which this movement is going towards, right? Now, regulations, unregulated market, etc., etc., those things are pretty diversified. If you look at the global scene right now, many countries have gone ahead and implemented it in a more, I would say, accepting manner. There, at the same time, there are some countries which are not so, confident in this technology, and there are several reasons for that. I will not go into that, but at the same time, there are enough number of investors who are investing in this space and providing the financial help to the industries, the startups they really need. Okay. Yeah, so of course, some idea to join any team. Ranjit, be a part of IBC Media WhatsApp group right now, what the team has shared. And of course, a lot of information you will get. How do you really participate in this industry? How do you become part of the community, etc., etc. Okay. So drop the hashtag and Twitter handle. Deepak, please do that. Several companies. I mean, I don't think you just Google it, you will find that, anonymous attendee. There are several companies which are using this. If you talk about permission, there are several companies in the permissioned space. In unpermissioned space, there are companies which are including the loyalty points as NFTs, right? And there are NFTs really have come into several. If you really look at all the gaming companies using Web2, all of them are right now in the process of migrating to Web3. All the fashion companies, the retail worlds, companies who are trying to get NFT into their world, and they're getting into Web3. So I don't think you need to give one such name. There are enough number of companies there. See, the regulatory challenges various governments are facing now. There is, of course, you need to understand one point. The regulatory challenges, the regulations, is a very, very, continuous process, guys. You have to understand that point. And the regulations, which really what you are seeing right now, they have been created some time back. And of course, there has been an effort in all the countries to keep them, updated with respect to the time. But then you also have to understand that blockchain as a technology is very, very advanced, like Abhishek also mentioned. So it will take time. It is taking time for them, regulators, to understand it, understand the nuances of the technology, and then try to make sure that all the end users are safe and securely being able to use this technology. So I think, in my opinion, there are different challenges with respect to cryptocurrencies, for example. Cryptocurrencies, if you really ask me, cryptocurrencies, they challenge the sovereignty of the fiat currency. There is a natural conflict there, right? But at the same time, if you look at blockchain, most of the countries, they are looking at implementing, stable coin of their own. So the point is that at the end of the day, what gets implemented is one thing. What has the technology given them to the governments, for example, that's another thing. You have to, you have to look at it, in very, very close, proximity there. Okay. So what are the criteria qualification to get internship? It's very, I have talked about it, earlier also. The point here is that the criteria qualifications is basically your attendance, your participation in quiz, participation in your assignments, right? Your guided building performance, all those things will be considered there. Coming back to the, Please share 3 developed. See, the point is that you go and look at Europe today and look at the way blockchain implementation is happening there. In fact, if you go and look at US, there are several states which are, which are promoting blockchains to a large extent, right? So I think that's what I'm telling you, that blockchain adoption is happening at different levels. Blockchain adoption is happening at the user level. Blockchain adoption is also happening in some way or the other, at the government level in different ways and forms. Blockchain adoption is happening in the business level, in the corporate houses, where you see several companies going for blockchain by using it in some or the other way. In my opinion, in the last I think a year or so, NFT implementation has been one of the fastest trend in blockchain, and especially with the real world asset tokenization, it really has crossed all the projections there. But I think you have to go and study more there, in my opinion. Yeah, so you are not getting anonymous attendee. I think
Right. No, that's all right, sir. I mean, so guys, understand that this is not a devil's advocate debate. I mean, it's about the technology. We are all pushing for the technology, and obviously we can talk in length, Praveen. And I mean,
absolutely. The
we
point
do a 8-day boot camp in. Sorry to interrupt you, sir. So we do an 8-day boot camp, and we find it extremely hard to encompass everything that this technology holds, of how impactful and how massive the technology is. And obviously, Praveen sir will add a couple more points in the closing comments. But before that, I would like to add that anything in this world, be it in the form of art, be it in the form of technology, be it, I mean, I have said art, but I always consider humanity as a very different and wide subject. If you take it into consideration, especially when it's disruptive in nature, okay, you will see that it gets misused. It gets misused because of the attraction that it gets. You see a lot of fake art out there, even in reality. I mean, there are at least hundreds of examples where people have spent $100K and millions of dollars and bought fake arts. So I mean, there are a lot of bad apples, obviously, but it happens. It's kind of you see, you always see those. I'm not exactly sure how do I say it in English, but जो पके हुए fruits होते हैं उसमें कीड़े ज्यादा लगते हैं. Deepak, can you just give a little bit I mean, your comments as to how why it is important from developer perspective to focus on blockchain?
Yeah, hi. Good evening, everybody. If we see as a developer perspective, see, if you are building something and you think like our data can be hacked or mutate sometime after you build that thing, so it's like it's of no use. Then the motivation is also gone down. Then I am building something and someone may come and disrupt that. So it should be like that that data should not be disrupt, and the data should be transparent to everybody.